This is History for Cocktail Parties with hack historians Thornton Kennedy and James Ottley.
Welcome back to History for Cocktail Parties. Thornton Kennedy here with our co-host
James Ottley.
James, how you doing today?
Doing great, man. How about yourself?
Good. Ready to get into the second episode on the largest manhunt in FBI history and American history, I believe.
That's right.
Let's do it. So catch us up on where we are.
Right. So when we last left off, we had Ray on a Greyhound bus heading to Detroit. He had eluded capture in Memphis because the police had been diverted to the wrong part of the city due to a teenager's hoax on his CB radio. They do know that he has a white Mustang, or he's driving a white Mustang, and so he knows he's got to ditch that car, which he did in Atlanta at the Capitol Homes apartment complex. The good news is the FBI has a fingerprint now from the rifle that Ray ditched or dropped in a panic back in Memphis. So that's going to get us almost to his getting to Detroit.
Before we get to that point, let's talk a little bit about our sponsor. As you guys know, we are sponsored by Play, our partners. They are a full-service advertising agency. They ensure the right people find you and buy what you're selling. See their many case studies at goplaydesign.com. That's goplaydesign.com. Now, back into the story of the manhunt.
Right on. So Ray makes it to Detroit. He gets, once he's there, he gets a cab and crosses through the Windsor Tunnel into Canada. So he's already international at this point. He has
was that a fairly easy process for him?
He's worried that he had dropped his DOP kit, toiletries kit, at the same time he dropped his rifle. And so he's unshaven and he can't shave. He actually goes and gets a shave and a haircut.
Oh, that's right. And the barber had not conducted and hadn't done a shave in years. And
yeah, he talks him into it. And so he doesn't look like unkempt anymore. So he has no trouble whatsoever getting into Canada. Doesn't have to, as probably even now, I don't think you have to use a passport to get into Canada. Maybe you do now, but you certainly didn't then. So once he's in Canada, he gets on a train, a Canadian National Railways train, and in 4 hours he's in Toronto. He finds lodging at a boarding house. It's owned by a middle-aged Polish couple, and he stays in his room all weekend watching TV. When interviewed later, the landlady thought it was odd how much time he spent in the room watching TV and reading newspapers, but and then she said that I noticed how worried he looked. But, this is...
Remind me, there's nothing out there that is identified who the assassin was.
Not yet. Not yet.
The only thing that's out there is the white Mustang.
That's exactly right. And a guy who's, middle-aged, not middle-aged, but younger and meticulously dressed. And so this behavior may be a little bit suspicious, but it's certainly not enough to report to the police. I mean, if I were the landlady, I certainly wouldn't report that. And again, as you pointed out, there's no description, so she doesn't, she has no reason to call the police. Meanwhile, back at FBI headquarters, they're not at headquarters, but back in Memphis, the FBI is checking out all the motels around the Memphis area, looking for, asking them about guests that might have checked in with a white Mustang or with any type of Mustang. And one of these hotels is the New Rebel Motel. It's on the outskirts of Memphis. And they interview the attendant and says, yeah, there was a guy in a Mustang who checked in here a day before the shooting. And fortunately, they still have the registration card. I mean, thank God.
Right.
And the name on the card was Eric S. Galt. And as we've said, this was Ray's alias. And even better, they had the license plate number of his white Mustang. And an address that he had given as his home address, which was in Birmingham, Alabama.
It really just reminds you how incompetent he was.
Yeah.
He really thought that he had planned this out so carefully, but he had made so many idiotic errors. He just was not a very competent human being.
Thank God.
Just like to remind people that
Indeed.
He was an idiot.
And a scumbag.
And
so Ray stayed back in Canada, or Toronto. Ray's in his room all weekend, and finally comes out, and he goes to the Toronto Evening Telegram, which is a newspaper there, and he's looking for back issues of newspapers in the microfiche room. You think,
Right.
well, what the hell was he doing there? And what he's doing is he's looking for birth announcements for people that were born about the same time he was. He apparently had read about in Russian spy novels about, assuming names and how to do so and whatnot. So he comes across two names or two people in the microfiche, a guy named Ramon George Sneyd, that's Sneyd, and another guy named Paul Bridgman. And they were born at about the same time. And Sneyd is a police officer, and Bridgman was a teacher, and they both live in Toronto. So Ray finds their addresses and goes and stalks them and hangs out outside their homes. I mean, how creepy!
It's crazy,
so creepy. And to just see if he resembles either one of them, if they would make a good, see if he resembles either one of them. And he doesn't really resemble each other, but I guess the birth date is so close that he proceeds with it. He actually calls both of these individuals on the telephone.
Right. He calls them.
And he asks them, he says, if they've filed, or he says he's with the passport office and he's checking on irregularities and he needs to know if they've recently applied for a passport. Well, Bridgman says, hey, well, and everybody's so, believing, and they're not gullible, but I mean, this is the day before, spam and scams and this and that. And people are just honest. So if you get a phone call from someone and they say it's from the passport office, you're going to answer.
Well, let's make another point, which is that it was Canada.
That's right.
Canadians, by their nature, just were not suspicious. They were very, it's just a different culture.
I think I even heard, some moniker or saying that, like, hi, or welcome to Canada. We believe you.
I think did
you ever hear that?
Yeah,
okay.
I have heard that.
And
but
so,
there's a large component of people trusting this guy.
A culture of trust in Canada.
Which he exploits.
Indeed. So Bridgman tells him that his passport had expired 10 years ago, but he's not renewed it. And the other guy, Ramon Sneyd, says he's never applied for a passport. And so while Ray is stalking these two guys, Sneyd and Bridgman, back at FBI headquarters, they're getting tips from all over the country.
Right. Wasn't there a reward of?
Oh, absolutely. I don't know the amount. But
I don't know
the amount
there was. But it was a large reward at that time for any information leading to a capture, which caused floods of tips to come in.
A deluge. Absolutely.
And I thought it was interesting that the FBI actually doesn't like that.
You got to welcome those tips because one of them, may be good. But you're right. I mean, you get too many.
Everybody's neighbor. I know a guy with a white Mustang. It's just this flood of accusations. And as we'll learn later, when they actually get a little bit more information, it gets worse.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. So one of the tips came in from the Mexican consulate in Memphis, and this one seems, it's coming from the consulate. It seems maybe more legitimate than just the random caller. And they said they issued a visitor's permit to a suspicious-looking young man who bore resemblance to the description of the suspect.
Right.
And that the guy's name was John Scott Kendrian or something like that, some phony name. And he was going to enter Mexico on or around April 13th. So the FBI immediately expands the search, into Mexico, and they enlist the support of the federales, and so they not only are they searching the United States, but they're also.
But they think this guy may well have been of, that story.
That's right, actually, and think he might be in Mexico. So back in Atlanta. The Mustang, recall he ditched the Mustang at the Capitol Homes apartment complex or housing project, in downtown Atlanta, very near, by the way. And I think the car was actually parked there when the King funeral procession went by,
that's right.
Or went by near it. And
the King's funeral procession goes right by where the car is hidden.
That's right. And so the car's been there. It's April 10th. Car's been there for 5 days. And the 13-year-old son of one of the tenants hears the newscast that they've expanded the search into Mexico. And he notices that there's these stickers on the side of the car that say Turisto or Turista. and which
because Galt had lived in Mexico when he ran.
Was on the run. He had been down in Mexico, and so he had these Turista stickers on the car. And so this 13-year-old convinces his mother to, call the local FBI office and report this car that's been sitting there for 5 days and that has these stickers on it. She does that, finally does it, and the FBI, because of all these tips they've gotten from all over the country, maybe even all over the world, they think it's a false tip. And the guy on the FBI, this is one of their few missteps. They say to tell her to call the Atlanta Police Department.
Right.
Sounds like a stolen car kind of situation. So she does call the Atlanta police, and the Atlanta Police Department shows up later that night. But they just kind of do a cursory, looks like they're just doing a cursory inspection of it.
I love that portion of the book is they come out, they look at the car, and then they leave.
They drive off.
And they just decide that that's it. But then...
and everybody, the lady that called thinks, oh, well, that must not have been it, and whatnot.
Makes the hair stand up on my arm just thinking about what happens next. But it's such a huge break.
Switch back to Ray for just a minute before we cover that in detail. He's in Toronto. It's Thursday, April 11th. It's the next morning. And, I mean, it's almost like this could have been, out of a movie script or something like that. But he buys a makeup kit.
Oh, yeah.
A theatrical supply company. And that afternoon, April 11th, he walks into a photo studio and he tells the manager he needs some passport photos. She takes the photos and, tells him to come back in a couple hours, which he does.
He's got fake glasses on.
That's
He's
right.
done all kinds.
That's right. That's exactly right. And again, if the authorities, if this had been a different age where, everybody had a cell phone and there were CCTV cameras up, I mean, they had a description of him, this would have been the perfect time. I mean, he probably would have been caught by this point or at this point. And so, he's getting his passport photos. Back in Atlanta, the FBI converges on Capitol Home's parking lot. They've gotten one way or the other. They've gotten the message that there's a Mustang there.
Atlanta police come in, they check the car out, they leave it alone. It is over. But the next morning, the FBI is there.
That's right.
The APD clearly looked at it. And interestingly, they didn't really touch it. They didn't disturb it. I guess the APD must have immediately realized this is the car. It's probably, I guess, I don't know if Hampton Sides puts this in the book, but it's the license plate.
Yeah.
They instantly know that this is the car. Don't touch it. Back off.
Because they have the license plate from the New Rebel Motel registration card. That's exactly right. So they tow the Mustang off to the federal building, and they are analyzing this Mustang in detail. And at first, it kind of looks like a dead end. I mean, as we talked about in episode 1, there's nothing in the car. He's dumped all the contents, and he stopped in the middle of the night and he
wiped it down.
There are no fingerprints anywhere in the car. And then they find something interesting. They see an oil change sticker affixed to the inside of the left door. So they look at this sticker, and the sticker has the name and address of the oil change place that did the oil change. And it was Court Fox Ford on Hollywood Boulevard
in California.
And I think this is where the FBI really starts to kind of close the net on him,
Well, and flex its muscle. I mean, just to have the ability to go track down a lead like that across the country.
Absolutely.
And it gets crazier.
Oh, it does. I mean, and this is the first step in just some fantastic detective work.
Just good old-fashioned gumshoe detective work.
That's right. Before computers. So they
had to go in and interview the guy, talk to him.
Within an hour. They've got FBI agents in L.A. showing up at Court Fox Ford, interview, like you said, the garage attendant, and luckily he finds the work order from 1.5 months before.
Yeah.
And, thank God they kept it. I don't know why they would, but thank God they kept it. So the FBI gets Ray's address from when he lived and was spending time in L.A., again, when he was on the run for having
such a huge break in the case.
Huge break in the case. And so they go to 5533 Hollywood Boulevard in Los Angeles, which is where Ray's boarding house was when he was staying in L.A. And so they've reached the boarding house, and they interview the owner of the boarding house, and they find out that Ray had in fact lived there and had phone service for a short time.
Wow.
And again, this is just critically, you'll see why, but critically important that they learned this, and that the owner had remembered that this was the case. The FBI, takes this clue, and they call the Pacific Telephone and Telegraph Company, and the telephone company is able to provide his phone records,
right?
From this time, and every single, just as you'd expect, every single number that he dialed or
I don't want to sound like an old person, but we all remember getting yelled at by our fathers for running up a phone bill, and you literally got a phone bill that had every single phone call that had come out of the house. So they have this record of every phone call Ray made while he was in California.
Again, what a great break in the case. And so they pour over these phone records, and one of the numbers that Ray had called over and over again was, it's crazy, but the National Dance Studio.
Oh my God, forgot about the damn dance studio.
In Long Beach, California. So again, FBI agent, I don't know, sirens, whatnot, but they converge on the National Dance Studio, within an hour. And they interview the owner, and the owner said they remembered this guy, Ray.
Right.
He was, of course, using the name Galt at the time. They didn't know his name was Ray at this point, but he said he quit taking dance lessons. It's just so weird.
Yeah, but they have the name Galt. That's how they kind of narrow it down, is they have his false alias.
That's right. But he's guys taking dance lessons when he's on the run. Anyway, nothing wrong with taking dance lessons, but it just seems kind of weird that this escaped convict would want to take doing this. Anyway, he was. And the owner or the dance instructor said they remember him, and that all he wanted to do, or he said that all he wanted to do was open his own bar. And they said he was going to enroll. Actually, I think when they said they didn't have a whole lot of information on him, I think the FBI thought they were at a dead end.
Right.
And then the dance instructor said, but he
did talk about a bar.
He did talk about a bar and wanted to open up a bar, and said he was going to enroll in some school to learn how to be a bartender.
Huge break.
All right. So then again,
ladies and gentlemen, in terms of the butterfly flapping its wings, this little piece of information, which could have been a throwaway, ends up being the most important.
Changes everything. Just great detective work. And so the FBI, they fan out, they check all of the bartending schools in the area. And one of the last ones that they check is the International School of Bartending at 2125 Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles. And again, they interview the owner and a guy named Mr. Lau. And Mr. Lau says that, he remembers this, this guy, Galt.
He liked him, which is weird.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And
he thought he'd make a good bartender.
And he said he was going to help him get a job. He didn't really have a whole lot of information about it. And he said that Galt said that he was going to go out of state for a while and visit his brother. And he didn't really need a job at that point, but he'd call him when he got back. So again, the FBI, I'm sure they think, we're at a dead end here. We were at a dead end because Lau, as I said, had trouble recalling kind of what this guy Galt looked like, which is kind of funny because he remembered him, and liked him and was going to get him a job. Couldn't really give him a good description. But then he remembers a critical fact. He says, Ray did graduate. He did graduate from the school, did finish the course, and it's part of our procedure, or part of our deal, that we take a picture of every graduate with their diploma, with me and the the graduate together, holding up the diploma after graduation. And the FBI, I'm sure at that point, is like,
let me go get this picture.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, please do that now.
Picture. He has a picture of Eric Galt.
That's right. Amazing. So they get the picture, and this is the guy that was being hunted by 3,000 agents across the country and multiple countries. Right. Now that in Mexico,
by name, Galt was the name that they were looking for.
That's right.
Now they have a photo of Galt,
but there's only one problem. In the picture, Galt Ray. Ray's eyes are shut. So it's not a perfect picture of him. I mean, it's certainly 90% there, 90% of what they want. But, unless you've got the picture with somebody's eyes open, it's not 100%.
Yeah. And I don't want to give him any credit, but he did it on purpose.
Oh, you're probably right.
He was on the run.
You're probably right.
He was a wanted man.
Right.
And he knew that if he closed his eyes, that it would be more difficult to recognize him.
You're probably exactly right.
So weirdly,
yeah,
while you have the picture, you finally have an image of this individual.
It's not perfect.
It's not perfect.
It's not perfect.
And we'll find out in a minute why it's not perfect.
Exactly.
The FBI does. I mean, talk about a misstep.
That one is a misstep too. But we'll talk about that in just a second.
We're not there yet.
I want to get back to Toronto for a moment, back to Ray. So Ray walks into a travel agency, the Kennedy Travel Agency.
No relation.
No relation. And the travel agent, sits down with them, and Galt, Ray introduces himself, and he introduces himself now as Snade, the guy whose identity
he's the identity,
stealing the identity of, or already has. And first he asks the travel agent about tickets to Johannesburg, but he can't afford that. It's $845.
And just to remind our listeners, his goal was to get to Rhodesia, which was a white nationalist colony.
That's exactly right. So he can't afford that ticket, and he asked for what's the cheapest flight that you have? And apparently there was a ticket to London, round trip ticket to London for $345 Canadian. Travel agent asked him, if he has a passport, and he does not have one yet. He's working on it, but he doesn't have it. And
yeah, because he had those photos made.
That's exactly right. He's working on it, but he doesn't have it, taken care of yet. So Ray is under the mistaken impression also that to get a passport in Canada, he needs to have a guarantor. And this was somebody, a Canadian, in other words, like a Canadian citizen who was in good standing, who could vouch that he had known the applicant, had known Ray, or Snade in this case, for more than 2 years. And Ray, I guess it was a pretty good plan, he thought that he was going to develop the Snade identity, but also he was still developing the Paul Bridgman identity, the teacher that he had looked up and stalked.
Right.
And he was going to go in and apply for the passport in one getup, with makeup or whatever, and then a week or a couple of days later, go in a second time as he's going to go in the first time as Snade, and then the second time he's planning he would go in as Bridgman in a different outfit, maybe a toupee or something like that, and Bridgman would be the guarantor. But the travel agent tells him that she can get him a passport, and I guess it sounds like he doesn't need a guarantor. She asks if he has a birth certificate. Ray says no.
Right. I mean,
he doesn't have it.
No passport, no birth certificate, no guarantor.
Right. But so Ray says no. I don't have it. And of course, he's working on getting it. I think at this point he's ordered a duplicate birth certificate on Snade, and so he does, but he doesn't have that yet from the Canadian, the Toronto records. And she tells him, believe it or not, that's not necessary.
Canada.
It's Canada.
Canada, man. We trust everybody.
We trust everybody.
Hey, we can help you with that.
And also, not only that, she tells him he doesn't need a guarantor. She goes in and pulls out flips through her forms or whatnot and says that there's a loophole in the passport rules.
Right.
And that if he signs this, it's called a statutory declaration in lieu of guarantor.
Unbelievable.
It's crazy. And so Ray just had to sign the form in the presence of a notary, swearing he was who he said he was. And guess what? The travel agent was a notary too.
Unbelievable.
So he lists his emergency contact as Paul Bridgman, hands her the money. He hands her the passport pictures, which he has now, and money for the application or the processing fee. And so the travel agent, says, thank you very much. Come back in about 2 weeks and I'll have your passport and your airline ticket at the same time.
Unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. And that's what the FBI is up against. This guy just has the ability, to
they're up against an incredibly kind and competent Canadian.
That's right.
Who is
That's
just
right.
doing her job and saying, oh, you don't need any of this stuff. He was working so hard to get the birth certificate, to get the passport. Any one of those things may have tripped him up.
Absolutely.
But because she is so nice and so helpful,
and just doing her
runs
job,
the traps.
And it's not her. I mean, she doesn't. I mean, like you said, they don't have. I mean, they've gotten this picture, but it hadn't been published
not
yet.
published.
I mean, this is probably simultaneous, and she's just doing her job.
Just doing her job.
She's not doing anything wrong.
He's being helpful.
But thankfully, he pays her the money. But thankfully, he's in such a rush that when he makes one critical mistake, which is awesome, he scribbled his name Snade. He was in such a rush that he scribbled the name Snade in such a way that was barely legible.
Oh my gosh. Everybody pay really close attention to that fact.
That's right. That's right. And so, I mean, the
name is illegible on the passport application.
That's right. So, I mean, he didn't know it at the time. He just fills it out and goes on his way.
And has probably written Snade maybe twice in his life.
That's right. That's right. And so at this point, it's Wednesday, April 17th. The FBI has the picture, and they release the picture of Ray. They call as Eric Galt.
Right.
They don't know Ray.
They don't know Ray.
They don't know Ray. The name Ray. But they release the picture from the bartending school, and they release it. One picture of the original with his eyes closed, which we talked about, and also one with the eyes drawn in by an FBI sketch artist, and it looks kind of cartoonish.
Yeah.
And it possibly does more harm than good. It gets
creepy,
people
weird.
It is weird.
Odd.
We should put those pictures up on our social media.
We absolutely should pick those pictures
up. And when
I
say we, I mean you.
It's very strange, and it ends up causing more harm because it looks nothing like it.
Exactly. They should have just put up the original picture with his eyes closed and gone from there, I think.
But the eyeballs throw people off.
Yeah, it looks like a cartoon almost.
Except for he moves. I'm not going to get ahead of you, James.
Okay, no.
Rock and roll.
All right, let's see if I cover what you're going to talk about.
You're going to cover it.
And if I don't, fill it in.
You'll get there.
All right, so the same day that the picture is released, Ray is walking down the street in Toronto. He's not paying attention.
Oh, wow. I forgot about this.
And he jaywalks across a pretty busy street. Immediately, a Toronto police officer stops him, tells him to stop. He tells him he's issuing him a ticket right then and there. And the ticket's going to be $3. So the cop asks for his name and address. And Ray at this point he doesn't want to give him the Raymond Snade name,
right?
Because Raymond Snade is a police officer,
right?
And this police officer might know him,
may well,
and realize that something is up. And so he also didn't want to give him his Alabama license, the one that he has an Alabama license that says Eric S. Galt on it, because Eric S. Galt is now the most wanted man, arguably in the world.
The name is out there,
absolutely. And so, I mean, again, most wanted name in a man in North America and Mexico as well, And so he gives him a fake name and the address of a brothel where he had visited, and he's just waiting for the cop to ask for his ID. And that, and it should have been. The gig should have been up
100%
right here.
Let me see your ID.
But unbelievably,
Canada,
and again, I don't want to bash Canada, but I mean,
why don't we want to bash Canada?
Because I mean, you don't want to bash people for being trusting and believing and believing in the kindness and the honesty of people. But in this case, it did not
give me good old fashioned American paranoia.
Well, there you go. But because in this case, it certainly did not serve to.
I don't believe you. Show me your ID.
He doesn't ask for ID.
No,
cop does not ask for his ID.
Pays the $3 fine and
moves on.
Walks on back to his boarding house.
I mean,
with his heart in his. I mean,
yeah. I hope it was.
The gig was almost up.
Yeah, and I mean, there were so many. I think what makes this story so interesting, and again, what the FBI was up against, in terms of just the way the world was and the way Canada was back at that time. The fact that they caught this guy as quickly as they did is what I think makes his story as amazing as it is. So going back, I mentioned that Ray had checked into a boarding house when he got to Toronto.
Right.
And the landlady sees here's another situation.
Right. That's what I was going to say. Is
okay. The landlady,
even though the eyeballs are weird, the landlady
sees the picture of Galt, our guy Ray, sees it in the newspaper on April 18th, and instantly she's like, this is her boarder.
This is the weird guy who's upstairs and keeps his door shut.
Mr. Bridgman, as he's checked in under. And she shows a copy of the newspaper to her husband, and her husband tells her she's crazy.
Isn't that just a classic husband and wife?
You're
crazy.
Yeah. And it's almost like it reminds me of the ladies that were sitting around having coffee and saying, "Oh, that's the Mustang." He tells her she's crazy, and that she would make a fool out of herself and of him. So she doesn't call. She doesn't call, and it's tragic. Anyway, she misses her chance because the next morning Ray checks out of his room, and again, this is one more time when he could have been apprehended, but he wasn't. So back at FBI headquarters, because they've got Ray's picture, the lead fingerprint analyst, he narrows the search down to fingerprint records of men under 50 and over 21, because they've got even though they've got they know at least kind of his age demographic. So
have they already determined that he's a convict?
Not yet.
Okay.
But I'm just about to get to that. So they narrow it down to men under 50 and over 21, but this still leaves 3 million fingerprint cards to go through. And as we talked about in our first episode, no computers.
Right.
So you have to go through these by hand.
Right.
Magnifying.
Looking at the ridge lines, the Euler loops, and
exactly
all these things that are in your fingerprint, looking with a magnifying glass.
That's right. One by one.
Only way to do it.
But this guy, the head analyst, he reviews the evidence that's gathered so far, and he sees a pattern. We've talked about Ray's lived in all these different places, and they've gathered these multiple addresses, L.A. and a Birmingham address, and I think they knew he was in Mexico at one point, this, that, and the other, and they figured maybe this guy is a prison, escapee. He makes that conclusion.
Yeah, he's lived in so many places. He has multiple aliases at this point. We haven't discussed it yet, but he used a different name at the boarding house in Memphis. He's got 2 or 3 different aliases that the FBI know about.
And they think this guy looks like he's a man on the run.
Absolutely.
And so they narrow the search to fingerprints of known escapees, but this is still 53,000 fingerprint cards. 53,000.
Wow. Unbelievable.
But they get to work. The examiners start working on this late in the afternoon of April 18th, exactly 2 weeks after the assassination. And they bring in additional fingerprint analysts. They bring them in from Philadelphia, Baltimore, New York, Richmond. They've got 53,000 cards to review, and they need all this extra manpower, And so they get a break. They get a really lucky break. The next day, around 1 p.m. on April 19th, they find an exact match.
Unbelievable.
And this is the 702nd card out of 53,000. 702 out of 53,000. They now got their man. They now know that it's James Earl Ray, that he escaped the previous year from the Jeff City, Missouri state prison. And that talk about a lucky break. 702 cards out of 53,000.
With a magnifying glass.
With a magnifying glass.
Comparing these fingerprints.
And if think how long that would have taken them if it was one of the last cards that they came across, or that it wasn't in there at all. So what an incredibly lucky break for them.
Well, I think we are going to get to a situation like that in the next episode when they're trying to find the passport.
That's right.
Where it really does get to the last one.
That's right.
We will pick that up in the next episode. Thank you for joining us for History of Cocktail Parties. I believe we'll conclude next episode, but I don't want to make any promises.
No promises. No promises. So thank you all for listening. If you want to comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, we really appreciate you. This is History for Cocktail Parties with hack historians Thornton Kennedy and James Ottley.